Welcome. This is Session 6, Joseph's Brothers Go to Egypt, of our study on Joseph, God's faithfulness in the waiting. It's been a long time now as we encounter Joseph's story in Genesis 42. He is no longer that 17-year-old boy that was sold into slavery. It's now been over 20 years. He's an adult, he's married with kids, he's probably looking very Egyptian as an Egyptian official at this point. The 7 years of plenty have gone by, and now the 7 years of famine have hit. And Joseph's brothers are headed off to Egypt to buy grain. A little background on his family. Remember that his dad is Jacob, also known as Israel, and he had several different wives. His favorite wife was Joseph's mom, Rachel, and she had Joseph, and then she died in childbirth, having her second son, Benjamin. Jacob is obviously pretty protective of Benjamin, so he keeps him safe at home, while the rest of the brothers head off to Egypt. Now, when you're reading this text, I want you to think about Joseph's reaction, what he could do, and what he actually did. So obviously he's in a position of authority. He recognizes his brothers, but they don't recognize him. He could have done so many different things. If he had been spending all of those 20 years eaten away by bitterness and anger and seeking revenge, he could have done a lot here, but he doesn't. He makes some different decisions. Now, this is a historical narrative, so we're not told all of the different reasons why or what were good decisions and what were not good decisions, but we are given some information about kind of some of the emotions going on here and what's happening. So I'm going to read a little part of this chapter when Joseph's brothers show up, and it clues us into Joseph's reaction. This is Genesis chapter 42, starting in verse 21. It says, "They said to one another, 'Surely we are being punished because of our brother. We saw how distressed he was when he pleaded with us for his life, but we would not listen. That's why this distress has come on us.' Reuben replied, 'Didn't I tell you not to sin against the boy? But you wouldn't listen. Now we must give an accounting for his blood.' They did not realize that Joseph could understand them, since he was using an interpreter. He turned away from them and began to weep, but then came back and spoke to them again. He had Simeon taken from them and bound before their eyes." So in this little piece here, we're able to see some of the reactions of the brothers. Reuben, that's the oldest. He's the one that originally wanted to spare Joseph's life. Maybe that's why Joseph chose not to bind Reuben. Instead, he had Simeon bound and thrown into prison. And I bet he was watching his brother's reactions during this whole process. As you continue to read through Joseph's story, a big theme of forgiveness is going to come up. So I want you to think this week, is there anybody that you need to forgive or that you need to ask for forgiveness from? We don't want that root of bitterness to eat away in our lives. We want to have a tender heart that's able to forgive. So keep that in mind as we continue to study Joseph's story. And remember that over all of these years, God has been faithful, and he will continue to be faithful to Joseph.